Welcome back to Let's Chat About, a show where pretty much anything goes. Today I am joined by Michelle Fishering, MFA. We've got all of the alphabets behind our name today. And she is the founder of michellefishering.com. She is all about thought leadership, creating your intellectual legacy, and she is publishing my book this year. So I'm so excited to have Michelle on. Welcome, my dear.
Thank you so much. I'm not sure that you should just give me the go-ahead that anything goes.
That's how I like
into dangerous territory here.
Luckily, I keep a time limit on people, so we're good.
That's probably the most dangerous I could get is 3 hours later.
I know. No, like you were the first person I thought of when I was ready to do this show. And I'm like, it's just me and Michelle. And I'm like, maybe I'll do you were on my list to be like the second person to record. And then storms and technology issues and all of that came up. And now we're just risking it for the biscuit because it is both Mercury retrograde and you've got a storm rolling in.
I mean, this is like the third time we've tried to do this, but spring storms in Colorado, I guess.
I guess.
Not happy. But I cannot tell you how much I love being the first person you thought of with Let's Chat About, because
absolutely,
I mean, this is like my dream format.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, mine too. I just love it. And I love having conversations with you, and just so many dynamic individuals have already recorded with me. So I'm just like, it's awesome.
I love it.
Yeah. We were chatting before we popped on because of course we were. And we just kind of like accidentally stumbled onto a topic that I think is really cool for a lot of people to hear from both of us on. And it started with, it's kind of like a pivot in how we both are talking about our work. But it started with your Instagram getting hacked, right?
Yeah. So at the beginning of April, we're recording this at the end of April. I don't know. Sorry if I'm letting the cat out of the bag with you.
Oh, no. It's pre-recorded, y'all, in case you were wondering.
At the beginning of April, I was, my Instagram was hacked. And I have a couple of friends and colleagues in the space that had a very exact same thing happened. Whatever. Anyway. But instead of feeling like I had lost something, I decided to let it be a bit of a refresh. And, it's like spring cleaning energy is how I describe it. It just feels like, it just felt like a great opportunity to say, is what I've been communicating what I really want to be communicating about? Or have I gotten down this path, which I'm going to tell you, it was path B here. I have had so many interpretations of what I have always known what I want to do very clearly. Mm-hmm. I thought I was very clear. But in my way of communicating it with other people would interpret what I was saying in a different way. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, it's that. Yeah, sure. You want me to do that? I can do that. And it led me down more than once down these rabbit holes of sort of identifying, like I wake up one day and it's like, but that's not really what I was here to do.
Yeah.
And so I took the opportunity of this Instagram hack and losing, Instagram was really my primary way in terms of social media, of communicating about what I do and my thoughts about what I do and educating about what I do and all of that. And I just decided that instead of it being what someone else wanted it to be, I was going to be emphatically committed to my own vision and birth that, which again, I thought I had done more than once, over and over again in some ways for years. I thought, oh, this is it. Oh, that's it. And the vision itself has never changed. I just didn't know how to communicate it in a way that other people could understand.
Yeah. So how were other people interpreting it before?
Oh, God. I mean, okay. So the vision has always been like help people create impact with their ideas.
Yes.
Right? Change the world with your ideas, because what else is ever going to change the world?
Right.
Without an idea and without that, the rallying cry of a new way of thinking, we got nothing. Like nothing's going to change. So that's to me the first point. Plus, it's just fascinating. But it has taken the form of so many things, you know, a version of impact consulting, which is actually how you and I met.
Yeah.
Other people had interpreted that, oh, so you help people create like social impact companies and things like that. Sure, I can do that, which I absolutely can. Help some people become certified B Corps, worked together with some people on strategizing and thinking about impact initiatives. Again, that's where you and I started working together. And then it rolled from there. It came into this vision for a publishing house, which I love being a publisher. I love helping people bring their work into the world. But I had always envisioned it as something that where the book is a part of a bigger ecosystem. Because a book on its own, a book is not just a book.
Right.
A nonfiction book.
Right.
And so it was like I always envisioned it as part of a bigger whole, as a really essential, maybe like a cornerstone, to totally mix metaphors here, but a cornerstone of this ecosystem.
Yeah.
That then builds from that and around it and augments and supports. And maybe there's other books that stem off of that. There's courses, there's programs, there's keynote speeches, there's workshops, there's client work, whatever that unique ecosystem for you and your business and what you're creating, whatever that is, that's what I wanted to create.
Right.
And so then it just turned out that the publishing to me is a great end result and is really supportive to helping people bring their books into the world without some of the messiness and timelines of traditional publishing. But I was also pigeonholed there.
Right.
You just publish books. And I found myself creating content, and that my whole Instagram was just this, it didn't recognize what I was even talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just looked up one day and I was like, what? In fact, it was the day that I lost everything. I looked back and I thought, like, what was I even posting about? I mean, yeah, this stuff was, not that I was making stuff up or not that I wasn't excited. It just wasn't what I wanted to be talking about.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. See, and I love that because it feels like a little divine intervention there, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. And also let's just say, because we're woo here and we can own that.
Oh yeah.
Talk about when you decide that things are happening for you instead of to you.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So.
It's a huge shift. Now I've had to do some shifting in how I talk about what I do as well. Because as you know, I am deep in the research and the practical application of mitigating burnout, right? And I'm all about it. And people do search for me using like burnout prevention or burnout prevention coach, which is awesome. So I'm like, okay, I got to get more SEO content on my site for that. But when I'm talking to people, they're like, okay, so what do you do? And I'd be like, and they're like, so you talk about burnout a lot. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, but you also work with businesses? Yeah. And so I had to like really drill down into it. And so I've been talking about productivity and been talking about being essentially a chief operating officer for coaches, because people are like, oh, I know what that is. That's systems, that's productivity, it's all these things. And it's not burnout. It is mitigating burnout, right? Like, how do we combat burnout? We get really sustainable in our business practices and our productivity. We work with the ebbs and flows of our energy and all that. So I've definitely gone through that. And as I'm going through the edits on my book, I'm like, oh yeah, I need to be posting about this stuff. This is what lights me on fire and is amazing. And, like, I'm offering solutions and stuff. And at the same time, it's like, is is that really what I need to be talking about? And I think it's like a continual refinement process. Okay, and we're back. Because we tempted fate, and fate said, ha ha.
Only like 3 days later, 5 days later.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yes, my
But
storm did not enjoy us
yeah,
recording, I guess.
the storm, Mercury retrograde, and I mean, I've got beautiful weather here. You were saying your weather is good there, so
Beautiful. We cannot blame it on the weather. So
knock on wood.
I know. I'm like, I'm still like, am I still tempting fate? I don't know, but
No, I think we're good now. I've got a good feeling about this.
I have a good feeling. I have a good feeling. No, computers aren't going to crash. Like, we're just going to like,
we're good. We're good. It's all happy. Well, let's kind of pick up where we left off, and we kind of briefly touched on building an intellectual legacy, but if you could just kind of refresh my memory, kind of what intellectual legacy means and how you help people do that.
Yeah. So I don't really remember where we were with this either. So yeah, I mean, intellectual legacy for me, this is something, I have thought about, talked about, sort of studied the concept of legacy in general for a while now. I've been really fascinated by it. I believe deeply that it's like how we live now, not just something that happens after we're gone, right? So we leave behind an imprint in our lives, in all of our interactions, in the way that we show up, and how we use our resources and all the things, right? And so that imprint is our legacy. And for me, because I'm a huge nerd, the idea of intellectual legacy, right? What we bring forth from these beautiful brains that we have, and the ideas that come forth, the conversations we spark, the change that we instigate through sharing our ideas in the world. To me, this is what intellectual legacy is all about. Or even this idea of like, we all have unique wisdom. And you and I could have read all the same books, studied all the same things, but like we would have a unique set of wisdom and knowledge. And it's putting that out in the world in a way that can leave that imprint that yes, changes lives. Because I believe that even the most subtle, that little butterfly effect, right? Even like the most subtle breeze has an impact and has a downstream effect. And so to me, it's this idea of bringing all of that forth with in an intentional way that changes the world and leaves this essence. And whether you want to think of that as like, I leave this recording, right, with an essence, or if you want to think about your life and whatever kind of feels right for you. And at the end of your life, it's not just what money have you left behind for your kids. It's not just what was your reputation. It's what ideas did you put out in the world? What knowledge did you share? When did we stop thinking about, and maybe we haven't stopped, but this is something that I feel really compelled to talk about, is when did we stop passing down wisdom from generation to generation? Right? Like that lived wisdom story, that like the storytelling that when an elder in a family or a tribe or whatever kind of community group you want to talk about told the stories of what plants they worked with, what foods served as medicine, how to be a member of the society of that group, of that community. When did we lose that sense of passing along wisdom and knowledge gained from our life experience and doing that in an intentional way?
anyway, that was a little bit of a rabbit hole, but that's kind of what it feels like to me, is like are we not, we still have an opportunity to do that, but we have to cultivate it, because it's not something that's necessarily fostered or encouraged. I don't see that. And I've been craving it. And so that's part of what really led me into this work, because I think as with most of, right, it's like, it's the things that we need for ourselves and what we want for ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think for people who have that intellectual curiosity, there is this sense of, I want to learn a lot of things.
Yeah.
But then what? Then what do we do with them?
Right. So I love both the intentionality of an intellectual legacy. Obviously, I love the intellectual part, because we talk about like building a legacy, and a lot of times it's like very financially based, which is important as well, to provide for our kiddos and all that. But I love also the follow through, right? Because we can talk about new ideas, and I love it, and share knowledge. And then there's also that part of, so that what? Like, so that we can continue to live well? Is it so that new problems get solved? You know, what is that outcome that we want to go after?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And doesn't it, like it, I feel like there's something to be said. Maybe this is partially self-serving, because for me, it's that intellectual curiosity and that drive for understanding, and a love of knowledge and information seeking, that there's something about it that feels like, when there's a purpose for it beyond just my own consumption and my own like gratification, to me, that feels, I'm gaining this wisdom so that I can pass it on to another generation. And obviously there are ways of doing that are very, feel very condescending, and,
right.
I'm sure as the mother of a child, you understand that sometimes you're trying to pass on wisdom and it just does not
work sometimes.
They just do not care. But but there's just something about that, right? That feels very like, I'm doing this, yes, for my own gratification, and also because this is an idea that I think is missing out there, or I think this is the conversation that's happening, but why doesn't anybody see this?
Yeah.
I see it this way. And I feel like if people could just understand how I see it, maybe it would change the conversation. Maybe it would create a shift. Maybe it would create movement where we're in stagnation.
Yeah.
And I think that's where our ideas are so powerful. And that's what sparks movements. That's what sparks change. That's what sparks, whether we're talking about societal or for an individual,
right?
Is it an idea? It has to start there.
Right. Yeah.
And so if we can cultivate those ideas and cultivate and be intentional about choosing our intellectual legacy.
Yeah.
I also feel like it's a little bit of a call, like a call up, not a call out, a call up.
Yeah.
Right? To the people like you and me who crave this knowledge and crave understanding,
right?
And accumulate lots of degrees and lots of things.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, no, let's, and that's, that's one of the beautiful things that we're doing together is creating your intellectual legacy.
Yeah.
And you're doing it in the work that you're putting into the world. Your whole body of work in this book gets to be a really important cornerstone piece of that.
Exactly.
This book / these books.
Yes.
These soon to be these books.
These books.
Get to be an important, and that's something. A book is something that's tangible. It's not the only thing that can be an part of an intellectual legacy, of course. I think just like with anything else, just like even with your financial legacy that you're passing on to your kids, it's not just a bank account.
Right.
It's also the financial literacy that you raise your children with. It's the it's a whole series of things, plus also all the legal structures that you put around all of that. And, financial legacy is even made up of more than just money handing over.
Right.
But so to me, like intellectual legacy, when it comes to a book, a book is a physical, tangible item that people hold in their hands. And I hope to God that is always going to be true.
I know.
I hope that I mean, as much as like paper, yes, I understand. And like, I understand the resource. But I just I don't know that I could ever accept a world where there's no physical books. So let's like.
Well, I'm calling for publishers and producers to start using bamboo because it is so sustainable. It just grows everywhere and it makes wonderful materials. I mean, my husband,
there's a book,
this,
so Beautiful Writers by Linda Sievertson. She actually intentionally, I think she even maybe switched publishers when she published this book because she was so emphatic about being very aware of the paper sourcing and being a steward of that piece of the process. Like it's essential that this book exists in a tangible form. And I want to be a respectful and responsible steward of this resource. And so how can we balance those two things? So I do think that's a really important piece of it.
Yeah.
So I'm not promoting just like wholesale, like printing of all the things, but a book is a tangible thing that we get to hold in our hands that generations of your children, of other people's children, of, this is something that multiple generations from now, people will be holding your book in their hands.
Right.
And this is also the other call, which is to say, if you are going to create a book, be aware that you are leaving an intellectual legacy.
Yeah.
And so if it's a book length sales page, that's the intellectual legacy that you're leaving.
Right. Exactly.
And is that really the legacy that is that really, or do you really want to put something out in the world? It's not just about an instant gratification. Like I'm doing this because I want to use this to make money and do that. It's something that gets to be out there in the world and people will hold. It means that you are literally taking up space in the world. Your ideas are physically taking up space on a bookshelf, on lots of bookshelves.
Exactly.
That's big. Like that's huge, especially for those of us who maybe were taught to not take up a lot of space. Right. So there's so many things. Oh my God. I know I've just been kind of like all over the place with these thoughts, but there's so much there. I feel like, it's like, it's so undervalued. And I feel like once we get out of, we study, we graduate from college or university and we go out in the world. And I feel like we really lose touch with that. I don't know. I think of it as like healthy intellectualism.
Yeah.
Versus like pretentious.
Right.
Egoic intellectualism.
It's like a continual learning, right? It's a continual growth. It's adding to your skills. It's adding to your knowledge.
It's approaching every situation from like with that curiosity and what can I learn and how can I grow? And it's just constantly fostering that. To me, that's this version of like healthy intellectualism. It's also the exploring beyond the bounds of your expertise or your field or your subject matter, right? It's dipping into lots of different buckets and studying lots of different things with intentionality. And I mean, that's also what makes ideas so much better. I just today did an Instagram on cross-pollination, right? Where our ideas are so much more powerful, just like a plant when there's cross-pollination happening, that diversity of perspective and voices and all of that. And so I think this is all part of, it's what you consume and what you create out of that consumption that's really, that gets to make up this body of work that is your intellectual legacy.
Oh yeah.
And so it's not something that everybody finds appealing.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That's okay.
It's okay for everybody.
Right? It's not for everybody. Like if I'm talking about this and this is like, oh, that sounds painful. or boring.
No one's twisting your arm. It's okay.
I have a feeling that most of the people, Megan, in your world are probably people who are like, ooh, I like
Oh, yeah,
that.
probably so.
Right. But I do, it's not something that everyone's going to feel called to explore deeper.
Right.
And that's okay. It's if it feels right for you, maybe start thinking about that like the work that you put into the world in that way.
Yeah.
And see how much more enriching it is, because to me that's really what it's all about, right? Is that it nourishes thinking about it in that way, and intentionally cultivating this intellectual legacy in my own life is very fulfilling.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Same here.
Well, that's because we're two peas in a pod over here.
We really are. We really are. It's so awesome. I think about it all the time when we met. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad.
I know. You were one of those people who I was like, oh, there are people out there.
Oh yeah.
There are people like me out there in the world.
I know, right?
I was like, I found a soulmate.
I know. Oh, thank you. Same here. Yeah. You're my bestie. So in case somebody else is out there like, wow, I really am into this, I've got your website here, and I'll have all the links down in the description, but just tell folks where they can connect with you online.
So I'm most active on Instagram. As we talked about at the beginning, I feel like we did talk about this, and now I'm remembering. We talked about I had lost my Instagram, and so I'm rebuilding that. But that's really, I've kind of dabbled in the other social medias, but for some reason Instagram is just feels like the right place for me. So that's where I'm the most active. So come over there, check things out. Follow along. What do they call that? What do they call it when you don't engage and you just lurking?
Oh, lurking. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a lurker. I'm absolutely a lurker. Like, be a lurker. That's totally fine.
Oh yeah.
But also engage if that feels right for you. I love
a little heart.
I love engagement. I love conversation.
Right.
That's totally fine. I am just in the process of creating some really cool new things that will make some of my work just more accessible to people outside of a one-on-one container. So that's going to be really exciting. Mostly focused on authorship. So if writing and publishing books is of interest, that's going to be happening. But certainly if there was interest in more specific material around, again, specifically intellectual legacy, or we talk a lot about thought leadership. So these types of things. I'm, again, the drive to create things that serve people is maybe like slightly unreasonable in my brain. So
I love
it. Give me any reason to create something, and I will create it.
I love it. Do not stop. The world needs your work so much. I know you and I both tell other people, it's like, oh, the world needs your work. I'm telling you, Michelle, we need your work.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being on twice. And all of that. And I'm so glad we got to complete this conversation, because it's just so yummy. So
I know. I love it so much. It would have been kind of fun to see if people had even noticed that we did a whole chain. That would have been kind of fun. But yes, everyone who has been here, thank you so much. I know you're probably not experiencing the weirdness of all of that, but Megan, thank you for your patience. Thank you for having me here. And thanks for this beautiful conversation.
Thank you so much. Chat with you soon.